Night 2025. The time is 10 minutes past 8. That means, as always, one thing, that there are very many F1 centric thread at which we need to pull. We're going to talk Maximilian Verstappen and his latest venture this coming Saturday. Apparently, we'll talk all about the details. Race 9, NLS, Nürburgring. We'll talk about Lando Norris. Reports circulating now that his performance at Baku only confirms what people already know, that this dude is nothing if not a bottle job. ESPN reports. So too, we'll talk about the impending Charles Leclerc, Lewis Hamilton beef, Scuderia Ferrari. Of course, it was always going to happen. This Scuderia Ferrari, Maranello, Milan, Fiorano is not big enough for the both of us. And we'll talk about Red Bull upgrades. The legend that is Dr. Obbs, infinitely more connected to the Red Bull circumstance than I, you or me, has spoken about it. The Genesis story about Red Bull's improvement. Why? What have they changed? Of course, it's floor fairings, double brake that will go through it all. It will get techier than techie things. And so too, we'll talk about the one that they call Christian Horner. Haas, Alpine, potentially. Who knows? But there's lots of speculation, lots of reports. And again, all F1 journals are created equally, but some, mentioned known to Daily Mail, are created more equal than others. Let's talk about Charles Leclerc and Lewis Hamilton. Context is key in this thing, right? This is Ferrari. Again, it was always going to be difficult for Sir Lewis Hamilton. I don't think even I or you or we knew the steepness of the gradient, the hill up which he would need to climb to win his first, not his eighth. That's what he said. That's Sir Lewis Hamilton's words. And going into this season, it was all perfect. It was all roses and flowers and daisies. Was it not? Charles Leclerc and Sir Lewis were singing from the same hymn sheet stylistically. Last of the late breakers, geometric racing line, wide line guys. Ergo, there was a Venn diagram as far as the handling dynamic that they required from the SF25. They were even going on dog walk dates, for Pete's sake. This was perfect. Kumbaya settings. Ferrari had themselves probably the best driver pairing on the grid. And more to the point, they got along. Look at them there. Practically a bromance, do you know what I mean? But this weekend, the inevitable happened. Fractures, no fissures in that relationship. Because why? Because the two of them want to be the top dog at Scuderia Ferrari, the red car with the yellow badge and the black prancing horse atop. It was never going to last. It's the oldest truism in F1 history. Nico Rosberg and Lewis Hamilton, lest we forget, prior to 2014 were best mates. They used to travel the circuit together when they were teenagers, for Pete's sake. There are pictures of them and look how that turned out. Ever since 2016, I don't think they've even spoken since, not properly, not on good terms. So what makes you think that Charles Leclerc and Sir Lewis are any different? This Fiorano town, Milan, Tifosi, isn't big enough for the both of us. Here's what happened during the Baku Azerbaijan Grand Prix race weekend. Lewis Hamilton was given the place, wasn't he? Go on, have a go, mate. You're on quicker tyres. Although, per Lewis and Bottas so many moons ago, if you don't make it, if you can't challenge the chap in front, give me back the place. That was the order by Scuderia Ferrari. And true to form, in the dying embers of the Azerbaijan Grand Prix, Sir Lewis, Carl Davidson, Hamilton, Mr. Altruism, was ordered to give the place back, and he botched it. He apologised shortly thereafter, but nevertheless, the headline is that Lewis was ordered to give the place back, and he did not. Check out Charles Leclerc's reaction to it on the radio. I'm just hearing this. Of course, I'm a couple of days late, 48 hours late with this, but I think it's telling, and I think you will like. Play the clip.
Sorry about that.
I don't really care. It's for a nice place, so it's okay. He can enjoy that P8. It's just stupid because it's not fair, but again, I don't mind, honestly. P8 or P9 has been a difficult weekend, so. Is Carlos on the podium?
Yes, he is, P3.
Good job, Tim.
Do you hear Charles Leclerc's tone? Can crack on, mate. It's only P8. Give it to him. Although it's a bit stupid because it's not fair. Charles Leclerc was not happy with Lewis Hamilton then, not giving him back the P8 that he feels like he so deserved. It's stupid because it's not fair. Why didn't that dude give me back that place? I would argue, therefore, this might not be the end of this. I think this is the first instance. Scuderia Ferrari, I mean, it's always going to be beef between two fire-breathing dragon of F1 drivers in Lewis and Charles, who both want the same thing, to rule the roost at the red team with the yellow badge and black prancing Corsa. And I don't blame, by the way, if I'm going to chime in with my own opinion for a second, I don't blame Charles Leclerc. If those were the orders that were given, you best make sure, bet your bottom dollar that you best give me that place back. What, you're a 7-time champion? Why are you leaving it so late if you don't know where the start-finish line is? Like, give me back the bloody place. What are you doing? And I think Charles Leclerc has the memory of an elephant. Ergo, he will not forget that, not anytime soon. And I cannot blame him, chat. You're a legend, Liam. I appreciate evening. You're invited to Austria. You're going to Austria in 27, mate. I don't even hate that. I might try and get over there myself, especially if Scuderia Ferrari are going to continue in this fate. Let me know what you think of this in the chat. Some people say it's a nothing burger. If Charles told you that he didn't care, then take his word for it. But when I listen back to his tone, he didn't sound like he didn't care, especially when he started to talk about Carlos Sainz and his podium. He sounded infinitely more happy. Let's listen to this again.
Say about that.
I don't really care. It's for an 8th place, so it's okay. He can enjoy that P8. It's just stupid because it's not fair, but again, I don't mind. Honestly, P8 or P9 has been a difficult weekend. So, is Carlos on the podium?
Yes, he is P3.
Good job, Tim.
Say about.
Pertinent piece is that Brian Bosey's race engineer is apologising. He says, I don't care. And then he says he can enjoy that P8. Ergo, bet your bottom dollar if it was a P1, you best give me that place. I think this is the beginning of something, chap, maybe a nothing burger, you might argue, but I think it'll get techier than techie things over the course of the next few race weekends between these guys and girls over at the red team. Oh, and by the way, I need to tell you about Lando Norris, because he talked about this dude ad infinitum. I think, listen, let me be open and honest. I think this dude is a brilliant race driver. He's super quick. Tom Clarkson asserted quite pertinently, being precise with words, that he didn't think Lando was a quick racing driver. He said he was a quick driver of quick racing cars, and that Oscar Piastri was always going to be a quicker, better racing driver from it. It's a subtle difference if we are indeed being precise with our words. Now, there's a report over at ESPN, and they say that his mistake-strewn race weekend over at Azerbaijan, round 17, was only proof positive of what so many insiders up and down the paddock already suspected of Lando Norris, that when he has the opportunity, the bit between his teeth, when he has victory in his palms, that he will always seize defeat from the jaws, no more of it. Here's what ESPN say. McLaren can get away with Lando Norris failing to capitalise on others' mistakes when, of course, the Constructors' Championship is in the rear view, wrapped up already. There are no stakes, but in future seasons that it might not be as straightforward, say ESPN, for Andrea Stella's team, which will concern McLaren's bosses going forward. The report from ESPN states that Lando Norris's performance in Baku did little to downplay the reputation that the Englishman has already gained for seeming to fall short when the heat is on. Bottle job. Now, let me say, for the avoidance of doubt, preface everything I'm about to say with this. I don't think Lando Norris is a bottle job. I think he has multitudinous foibles and issues with which he's dealing. Of course, it's self-esteem, mental fortitude or lack thereof, playing his way, taking too long, to play his way into the crease. These are all salient points that could potentially hinder Lando Norris as he bids to become a champion of the drivers' variety in 2025. A bottle job is too tough. It's too sharp a terminology. I don't think Lando Norris is deserving of that, but that being said, of course he has foibles. Now, if you look at this race weekend in isolation, the qualifying performance, again, it's one of those ones that's frustrating for Lando fans and F1 fans alike, because the victory was there, right there within his grasp. Nail qualifying, and your gonzo chap, you're down the road in an MCL 3.9 with its double brake duct and god tier levels of aerodynamic efficiency. Max Verstappen, all things being equal, shouldn't be able to get near you in that car, Lando Norris. And that's why F1 fans and Lando fans alike are like, oh, it's frustrating, chap. Surely just keep it on the track and don't touch the barrier in the dying embers of qualifying. Of course, it's changeable conditions, but we've read this book, this Lando Norris book, before. Mentioned no names, Saudi Arabia, qualifying again, yeets it into the barrier at the critical times again. Mentioned no names, the Canadian Grand Prix, yeets it into the gearbox of Oscar Piastri. I mean, it's techie this, but then he goes and does Monaco, eh? It's a juxtaposition. How can you qualify first, pole in Monaco, in the dying embers, be so clutch in Australia, and yet be so clutch or lack thereof at the Baku Grand Prix? This is the dichotomy for which we have to solve as Lando and F1 fans all around the world. As brilliant as that dude can be, is as bad as he can be in the critical times. And again, mention no names, Simon Bonds, the meaning of sport. The difference between the truly good ones and the truly great ones is their ability to access the best out of themselves in the critical times, the big points, match point at Wimbledon, Q3 at Monaco, for Pete's sake. Lando Norris now, his reputation precedes him. Oh, and by the way, we're going to talk about Christian Horner here because it gets a bit techy. You guys are legends, by the way. You're a legend, Charles Edward. Top chap. A pack of cigs on the kid. You're a legend, Charles Edward. I appreciate you ad infinitum, sir. Go on then. Let's talk about Christian Horner, because this is where it gets techier than techie things. Remember that it's important that I set the scene accordingly, lest we forget all F1 publications are created equally, but some are created more equal than others. There's been speculation erstwhile this season that Christian Horner intends to come back in the not too distant future. Mention no names 2026 in conjunction with Fabio Briatore, now executive advisor of Alpine. Why? Well, because Christian Horner keen to learn, from the mistakes of Christmas past. He wants to be an equity holder, a shareholder now. Because Christian Horner will be acutely aware that if he'd been a shareholder, a majority shareholder at Red Bull Racing, that they wouldn't have been able to get rid of him. He's keen to learn the lessons of Christmas past and become what Toto Wolff has become for Mercedes, a team principal, come CEO, come shareholder. Lest we forget that Toto owns 33% of Mercedes F1. So who's going to sack him? He'd have to sack himself, and that's what Christian Horner wants. Power, equity, Alpine potentially offer him that. Lest we forget that Fabio Briatore, some say, was brought on with a view to increase the asset value of Alpine to anywhere between 1.5 billion and 2 billion, if we're using the 4 billion that the valuation of McLaren again recently came out as a benchmark. 2 billion, maybe Fabio can get it that way. Maybe. If anybody can, Fabio can. And that's why Christian Horner would be good as a team principal, right? Especially if he can raise the funds. But now Daily Mail are saying, not so fast, Alpine. That potentially, it won't be Alpine. It will be Haas. Bull feathers. I'm calling it now. You can take that one to the bank. Gene Haas, lest we forget. The reason why Gunther Steiner left as team principal, because he brought a sponsorship deal said to be worth $30 million to Gene Haas's table. In return for this $30 million, Gunther Steiner said, I will be wanting some equity, sir. I'm bringing money into the team. This is my commercial value. Give me some equity, some shares, therefore, Gunther said. You know what Gene Haas said? Mate, get out of here, chap. I reject your offer, and while you're there, you can get your coat, mate. You're no longer CEO, team principal of Haas F1. So what makes you think that Christian Horner's going to come in and Gunther Steiner and Gene Haas is going to treat that fella any different? Gene Haas is stingy, has always been with his funds, and so I don't think that's going to happen. Oh, and by the way, if we're talking about Red Bull, the bulls that are Oracle Red Bull Racing, there's been a couple of things come out. I've got to give in the first instance credit to Dr. Obbs on Twitter. Again, infinitely more connected to the Red Bull circumstance than you and me and I. This is what we know. Red Bull have made a leaps and bounds right. They've done something erstwhile season today, and even rewinding back to 2024, there's a couple of things that they suffered from. No longer was it the god tier level of aerodynamic efficiency that so characterised the RB19 in previous years. Now, Maximilian Verstappen, 2024 Hungary, you'll recall, kept on suffering from understeer. He could no longer turn the car in. And then when he could, it suffered from snap oversteer during the medium to high speed turns, lest we forget. Now, however, something's happened. A reverse inertia valve settings. That's what's going on. And I crack that joke, say that very firmly with tongue in cheek. Matthew Brown, you're a legend. If they nail Singapore 5th consecutive championship, go on, we'll talk about it, I promise. You're too kind, Matthew Brown. We will nail this, because it's an important point. Go on, let me read it out. Matthew Brown, if they're now Singapore 5th consecutive championship, not done since 2004, is incoming. Do you smell that, McLaren? That's fear. The king of this arena, that is Formula One, is coming for you, and he has a name. His name is Maximilian Verstappen. I'm not that rich, but please play my game, F1 Grid Game. Turkleen, I'll have a look, mate, F1 Grid Game, and I recommend it, Turkleen. You're too kind. Go on, and let me give you the context as far as Red Bull are concerned. A couple of things that they've been struggling with over the past 24 months. Aerodynamic efficiency is gone. Aerodynamic efficiency, of course, alludes to the fact that for every downforce point that you tack onto the car, it makes it less slippery, right? If you can get downforce somehow without making the car more slippery, slower through the straights, then you are winning. Again, this is ground effect. This is the Venturi tunnels. This is this rule and reg spec. 80% of the downforce, what you need to go through the turns with a high minimum speed, comes from the underfloor now. Red Bull were always god tier when the last airbender Adrian Newey was there. Now, however, all of a sudden something's happened and they can't fix for it. It's as if Adrian Newey put down his red pen and his notebook, and then all of a sudden they forgot how to troubleshoot, solve for a car. They haven't been able to fix it. Whereas, you remember, as Adrian Newey was about to leave, they all said, "No, nothing to see here." Christian Horner was like, "No worries. We've got a succession plan." Pierre Vacher and the likes of Enrico Balba, they've got this. Do you know what I mean? They'll be able to take a step back like Adrian Newey used to do so brilliantly and fix and troubleshoot for a car. They can do what Adrian Newey used to do so brilliantly, which is, of course, to take a step back from the F1 wood and see in clear blue the F1 trees. They can do that now. You remember when they talked about Adrian Newey being so god tier, they said, you know what, he hasn't even had his hand on a car for about 3 years. He was the one who fractured his skull, and ever since then it's been us. And when I say us, I'm talking about Enrico Balba and Pierre Vacher, but we haven't seen anything from them since Fernando, Charles. I mean, Charles, he's gonna need it, chap. If you're talking about Fernando? He hasn't been great either of late, has he, Charles? But I digress. 1-2 Nando's coming for me. 3-4. Better drop some more 5. You're a legend, Sir Charles, mate. Far too kind, as per usual, always. And I'm infinitely grateful. I make no apologies for labouring that point, Sir Charles Edward Cheese. Go on and let me tell you about Red Bull. Ergo, it's been chaos. All the while, something's happened to their car. And again, it's hard not to connect the dots as far as causation. As soon as Adrian Newey puts down his pen and goes to pastures, and you mention no names, Aston Martin, as soon as that happens, all of a sudden their performance drops off the cliff. Potentially this is me doing apophenia, connecting causation dots that should not be connected, lest we forget correlation, causation. The former does not necessarily imply the latter. However, all of a sudden at Baku have come alive. Monza can chalk that up to an anomaly. They brought upgrades, but at Baku, with its sector 2, 90-degree bends, like what are we doing? Medium duration, low minimum speed. That Red Bull shouldn't be able to go well around there, unless, of course, they've changed something material. And Dr. Robbs is telling us. He's summarised, he's put together a synopsis that I think is worth us going through. I'll take you through some pictures. In the first instance, they sorted out the diffuser, and I think this happened last year at Baku, that they realised, of course, the diffuser is important. When you're getting clean air, it's important how you filtrate it through to the back of the car. So again, if you don't do that properly, what are you going to experience? Instability at the rear, ergo the snap oversteer that Maximilian Verstappen kept complaining about. As near as makes no difference every race in 2024. Oh, and by the way, double braked its settings. You know that McLaren, again, one of their strengths, the MCL39, is their ability, to mitigate for the rate at which their tyres are degging. You remember Zach Brown drinking from the tyre water bottle. Everybody thought that that's how they were doing it. Double brake duct is how they're doing it. And a couple of races back, Red Bull put that on their car. Oh, and by the way, Dr. Robs again, floor fairings. Do you remember this? Subtle changes, but subtle changes sometimes make the difference in a story told in tense. There you go. That's it. Go on, let me read this out to you again, courtesy of Dr. Obbs on Twitter, the legend that is. And again, he's got mates at Red Bull, hasn't he? So this is important, and I think we need to all take notes. Updates, I'm going to read this out to you because it's important. Dr. Rob says, here is the genesis story of the Red Bull upgrades, and now their market-leading performance. So in the first instance, updates to the horizontal side pod intake and the addition of exposed wingtip. Optimized intake reduces drag but also improves cooling efficiency. Wing may bring some outboard rotation to keep upper front tyre wake outboard. In a second instance, Dr. Rob says, quote, diffuser and floor body updates to make the floor performance less peaky. Load balance through the range of ride heights for more usable downforce, less peaky. Broaden, therefore, the operating window of the RB21. In the third instance, updated front wing and junction with the nose could help a bit with forward load while aiding inboard upwash and bringing some rotation to the nose boundary layer for flow cleanup. Low downforce rear wing. Monza settings update. Here's the critical one. In the fifth instance, Dr. Rob says, quote, updated front edge wing and attachment, rear corner flow optimization to work with updated floor and diffuser. Could be helping to get better edge load in high roll conditions and promote healthy diffuser performance. Front suspension junction updates works like the front wing junction, creating some load but also increasing upwash and clean up boundary layer through rotational mixing. Front brake cooling updates to double brake duct, and it's techie over there. You know, I want to get excited. I do want to get excited for Maximilian Verstappen, I'll be honest with you. But there is a dose of reality in there. 69 points still behind your championship lead in Oscar Jack Piastri. And I don't know whether that's good enough, chat. I'll be honest, I'm not sure whether Maximilian Verstappen could do it, but never ever in your life should you bet against Maximilian Verstappen, because for the longest time over the past 24 months, that dude has been nothing if not the difference maker. Lest we forget the British Grand Prix qualifying, lest we forget Saudi Arabia, Jeddah Corniche, lest we forget Suzuka. As near as makes no difference, as close to a difference maker in F1, not named Adrian Newey, as potentially I've ever seen. It's going to get techier than techie things over the next couple of races. Oh, and by the way, Max Verstappen has made sure that plans are out there now. Look at this. This race weekend, we have ourselves some racing chat. NLS, race 9, Maximilian Verstappen. GT3 News reports MV33, Max Verstappen fan channel, God tier levels of. Okay, guys, it's happening. Max Verstappen will make his official GT3 debut this weekend at the Nürburgring. Again, remember, a couple of weekends ago, he was racing around in a Cayman. What are we doing here? The reason why, of course, because he needed to tick some boxes to get his license so that he can race the proper GT3 cars. On Saturday, this Saturday, Max Verstappen, the 27th of September, Max Verstappen will be taking part in the NLS Round 9, driving his stunning Ferrari 296 GT3. I mean, we're going to have to be streaming this, aren't we? It's going to get too techie. Of course, I have to stream this, lest I want to be deemed an F1 Muggles and or an F1 Abbott of unreason. It's going to get techie. Can you imagine seeing Maximilian Verstappen? And again, this is addressing one of the myths and legends. Rumour is that when he got into the Nordschleife, the car recently, that he, on his very first tour around the Nordschleife, lap record settings, notwithstanding balance of performance. It's techie over here. Some say Nordschleife stalwarts, diehards and vets said there is no way, Kira, I'm telling you it's coming. We will do the watch along, at least in part. Meant to be a 4-hour race, I think. At least the first hour or two. Go on. So Stalwart said die-hard veterans who were specialists around the Nordschleife said there's no way that Max Verstappen could just jump in that car and set lap records. There is no way. That car had to have more brake horsepower, less weight or something. Well, we're going to see for real this Saturday when these guys, these grizzled Nordschleife vets, are going to have to they're going to have to show and prove. Otherwise, rest assured, Maximilian Verstappen, 4 maybe soon to be 5-time champion, will put pay to them. I think he might steal their lunch money. I think it's going to be techier than techie things, but I digress. He's driving the Ferrari again, indeed, Vanadit. And again, I suppose I don't want to do the epiphania thing and link causation dots that should not be connected, but that's why some people are saying, well, I mean, if he's already driving Ferraris, then it's only a matter of time till you see that dude at Ferrari, eh? So Lewis Hamilton potentially retire. I have no idea. Dan, you're an absolute legend. Jos fixed the Red Bull. Can you imagine? I think Lauren Becky's had something to do with it. And I think credit needs to be given to Pierre Vacher for once. I've spoken disparagingly enough about that dude in the past. And on this occasion, per Ted Kravitz et al., I think Pierre Vacher deserves, you got to give him some credit. And Enrico Balbo and the rest of the team. Do you know what I mean? I don't think it's not been an easy car to drive. And I mean, you only need to check the second drive, right? All of a sudden, Tsunoda-san is able to drive that car. Did you watch the 2006 championship battle between Schumacher and Alonso? Schumacher was hunting down Alonso right down to the last race, and it was epic. Maybe Max can give us a rerun. Problem is this, Neil. The only part, if we're playing balanced games, I want to be real with you guys, lest you call my integrity into question, lest we forget objectivity and truth value will never ever sacrifice either one of the aforementioned, that the altar of cognitive dissonance can't do it, no, won't do it. The gap is 69 points, chat. It's techie. I want to say the biggest points gap that's ever, and at one time it was like 100 points, right? The biggest points gap that anybody's ever overcome in F1 history, something like 40 something points, Vettel's era. Like it's tough. It's going to be difficult. There's only 7 races left. That's not me saying that Max can't do it now that he's got a set of wheels underneath him that are potentially one of the quickest on the grid. But it's going to be hard. Going to need the racing gods to be smiling down on him. He's going to need fortuitous circumstance, a cheeky Lando, a cheeky Oscar DNF sprinkled across the next 7 races. It will be techier than techie things. This isn't me saying he can't do it. Just that per Lewis and Ferrari winning his first for Ferrari and not his 8th, the gradient of the hill up which Max will need to climb is very steep, damn near perpendicular. It will be unprecedented settings if indeed he can get it done. If indeed he can get it done. Schumacher was famous for never saying anything negative about his team. True that, says Neil. True, agreed. There's something to be said for fostering rapport amongst your team. Schumacher would go to great lengths. James Allison tells his story, right? The once upon a time for his birthday, the bloody, a sexy 2,000 pound road bike turned up at his house. Because Schumacher would make sure that he'd done the due diligence and knew everything about his team, what they were interested in, what they were doing at the weekend, whether they were doing triathlons, when their missus' birthday was, or their partners. Michael Schumacher knew all of that because he understood, if I'm going to yeet the car into the barriers sometimes and I need my engineers to stay up all night and forego sleep, then I kind of need to lead from the front. There is something to be said for currying favour. And I think Max gets that. I think Max gets that. I think Lewis gets that. Or at least he did at Mercedes, because those guys would go to bat for him massively. Racing God, watching Racing Gods. If there is a man that can, it is Max and only Max. He's going to get to, I swear. All of a sudden, you just feel like a rising Max Verstappen tide floats all boats now. Like all of a sudden, everybody's dialed back into F1 for 2025 with a view to see whether Max Verstappen can overturn that deficit, and not insubstantial deficit, I will have you know. We still need an Oscar and Lando incident taking both out at the same time. I mean, Canada was nearly lazy. I don't think we need it. And I'll never wish for a proper incident. But I mean, when you've seen Oscar's face, erstwhile this season, Oscar's just been like stoic, right? Super level-headed and even-handed, unaffected by the untrammeled by the rigours of a 2025 championship. Almost looked nonchalant, laissez-faire. He just didn't care. But all of a sudden, at Azerbaijan, mistake after mistake after mistake, barrier, false start, anti-stall, barrier. Like it was too much for Oscar Jack Piastri, and I just felt like, again, maybe I'm being a bit, especially when you bear in mind the broader context that Oscar, if 44 races consecutive finishes, 33 races he scored points in, so it's like, well, surely this has got to be an anomaly, but we'll only know for sure when we get to Singapore. Friend of the channel, Peter Windsor, thinks that he'll go very well. Again, if the trend is your friend, until maybe there has been a bend at Baku. Lewis became outspoken about Mercedes late in his Mercedes tenure and has carried a bit of that over to Ferrari. I think someone had a word with him over the summer that you don't do that potentially. But he's been quite outspoken, hasn't he, Neil? Like subtly outspoken. Lewis isn't going to nuke Ferrari, but he's upset at the team's circumstance. Drip feeds through. Do you know what I mean? Freudian slips here and there. I'll never forget Lewis saying at the Canadian Grand Prix, they had a look at the way they were setting up the car. I was like, what are you doing? This absolutely makes no sense. Why are you, around the working culture, their methods and their function, why are you setting the car up like that? This makes zero sense. So that is saying that. I mean, Neil, I think you're giving him not too much credit necessarily, but you mischaracterise the way in which Lewis talks about Ferrari. It's subtle. It's not going to call them winkers or say they're incompetent. But I mean, if you're saying the way they work makes no sense, then it kind of amounts to the same thing. FIA want a banger, help Max out, get Massey back here. Cool, I don't disagree. I think the FIA have always... I will never forget in 2021 seeing a picture of Ross Brawn alongside Michael Massey. I was like, hang on. Surely there should be Chinese walls between the FIA as the regulator and the commercial rights holder being Liberty Media. Why is Stefano Domenicali speaking to what? Sorry, it was Ross Brawn. He was head of F1 then, and Michael Massey. What? Why are those two even? Shouldn't be talking. But if good processes are good processes, you should have a solid line delineating between F1 as the commercial rights holder and FIA as the regulatory body. So why then was Ross Brawn seen talking to Michael Massey? It didn't make sense. But again, this is Formula One, oldest truism in Formula One history. Every YouTube channel is talking about Max discussing if he will. Safak, a rising Max Verstappen tide floats all F1 boats. Now we've got stakes, even for a short while. Now we've got stakes, there is uncertainty, and it feels and looks different. Now everybody's excited to see whether Max Verstappen can be brilliant enough for long enough over the next 7 races to keep the papaya-coloured drivers honest. Release is upset with Ferrari, he calls them they. It's a very good shout, Neil. They instead of we. Goodbye, we hardly knew you, Paul. Oof. Lewis is basically insulting Ferrari. Nigel Mansell 2.0. There are similarities there, Space Ghost. There are similarities. Just another bit of person. John, you were so fast. I didn't even read a comment. Go on then. Michael Massey. Michael Massimilian wasn't bad overall. Blimey. How, Michael? I mean, yeah. I mean, there is such a thing called availability heuristic. And you'd argue, if you were going to pitch that, if you're going to play devil's advocate for a second and ignore Michael Massey, his entire performance in 2024, some would say over the course of his tenure, he wasn't that bad. But all that people will remember is Abu Dhabi 2021. And because of that, they'll say he was an absolute nut job. Incompetence, God tier levels of. And maybe they're right. Maybe they are right with that. I think all 2021 Michael Massey wasn't very good. But there is availability heuristic at play, meaning that the biggest and brightest memory that you have of Michael Massey will stick in your head. It will overtype. Imagine Michael Massey had never ever made a mistake going in hypothetical games, of course. Imagine Massey had never made a mistake going into the season finale of 2021, and then Abu Dhabi 2021 happens. Availability heuristic. You that's all that you remember. You don't remember his hypothetical games, of course, though. You don't remember the rest of his tenure. Him being perfect, if indeed he were. All you remember is the very last thing that happened, because it was the biggest controversy to ever happen in the weird and wacky world that is the F1s. Lewis is washed. Bloody Norris Snowline. Red Bull engineer Papaya Ball. That's possibly all they needed. Is Lewis Hamilton really washed, Snow Lion? Okay, so if it looks washed and it smells washed, then surely it must be. No, I don't know. I don't know. I know it would be difficult for Lewis Hamilton to start winning races of any sort of frequency. I'll tell you that much. Why? Because he's 40 years old. F1 is a young man's game. Only 3 drivers ever have won a championship at 40 years old or older, being, of course, Farina in 50, 57 Juan Manuel Fangio, and 1966 Brabham. You guys tell me the last drivers to win a Sakov championship, the last drivers to win a race at 40 years old. It's got to be like Hill in 1996 or so. I don't know. I know Mansell nearly won one at 39. Prost won one at 38 or something. Alonso could have won one a couple of years ago at Monaco at the age of 41. These are unicorns, though, as far as race wins from 40-year-old drivers. I wouldn't estimate Lewis's knowledge of setups or car development, neither. Look at the drip, says EGG. Fernando is the oldest rookie ever. Oh, the humanity. Put some respect on Fernando Alonso. Is now a bad driver. Not a bad driver, and definitely not a bad racing mod. I've told you guys the story about when I had a conversation with loads of race engineers and pit crew back in the day, 2007, let's say. And I remember asking them straight away, who's the best driver? And to a man and woman, every single one of them said one name. That name was Fernando El Plan Alonso, man from Oviedo, Asturias. Said that he just knows everything. His racing brain is on a different level. A gift from the F1 gods, per se, that he knows his splits. He knows where he is on the track. He knows his strategy, plan A, plan B, plan C. He knows everything. He knows if it's going to rain. He's watching the bloody screens to see what's going on behind him and who's in a bit. He just knows everything. He's got this god-tier racing mind that the others just can't compete with. That's what they said about Fernando El Plan Alonso. And this was in 2007. He's just a different. And again, if you need proof positive of that, see what he did in Hungary in 2007. If we're talking about Fernando Alonso, 2007 Hungary, Fernando Alonso. How the hell did that dude? Spiteful, of course. A self-saboteur, of course. Some would say overly politicking. Of course, Fernando Plan Alonso is that. But how? Go on then. This is the story. In the fuel burn era, McLaren would alternate who would go out first. At Hungary qualifying in 2007, it was Fernando Alonso's turn to go out first, if I recall correctly. But Lewis's pit crew let him go out first. So Fernando's like, okay, so when are we going to swap? Lewis didn't swap. So Fernando's like, okay, so I'm going to have to get back here. Waits, as they're about to go into the pits, waits for Lewis to almost lap him, and then enters the pit lane just before Lewis Hamilton. Fernando Alonso then parks himself in the pit lane. Not much time left on the clock for them to get round and get their final hot lapping in qualifying. Fernando parks in the pit lane just long enough to make sure that he can pass for the checkered flag to go on to complete his hot lap, his final one of Hungary qualifying that year. But waits in the pit lane just long enough to make sure Lewis Hamilton behind him cannot. So you'd think then that his race engineer was on the radio to him, telling him exactly how long he needed to wait to be so precise. Just worked it all out in his bloody head. Me and Shez always laugh at this Shez of the Shakedown. Like, how did Fernando Alonso know exactly how long he needed to delay Lewis Hamilton in the pit before hot-footing it so that he could... What? I don't know. Even if you gave me a stopwatch and had multi-viewer up on a screen, I would struggle to calculate that in real time. How did he know? He's just a different. I mean, he might not be a fire-breathing dragon anymore, but bloody Nora. Do you remember when Schumacher retired? Everybody thought we were entering the Alonso era and that he would be the next Senna. Me too. I definitely did. Neil, that pesky young man from Luton came along, or from Stevenage. Neil, I definitely thought that Alonso was going to reign. I thought the king is dead. Long live the king. Like Alonso, I thought Alonso was going to take it over. That was the only sensible conclusion, right? With a rational, F1 mind, McLaren did it for Alonso. Why is it that we don't have female drivers? Dogs Bollocks said. Go on, let's close on this. You guys have been legends. Talking about women drivers. So there's something. There's not a thought experiment. There's a thesis that says equality of outcome doesn't match equality of opportunity. So now all of a sudden women are getting the opportunity to, like, I don't know, there's the W series, but it takes a while to embed, right? Before it'll be the next generation before you see, I don't know, the next Leila Lombardi or Michelle Mouton. Like, it will take some time before women start getting opportunity sufficient to where you'll see a woman in F1. That's my thesis. I think thus far, I mean, over the past 20, I mean, Max's mom, Eddie Jordan, so you've heard Eddie Jordan's physical. I don't think so, John. There are physical differences, but I don't think they should manifest necessarily in F1. It's not that type of gig. Do you know what I mean? It's not 100 meters or like UFC, where the physical differences between a man and a woman would manifest themselves and, do you know what I mean, make the differences clear as far as outcome. But I think you just need another Michelle Mouton. And a proper outlier. But even Max's mom, Eddie Jordan would always say about Sophie that Max's mom could have been an F1 driver if she'd been given the bloody opportunity. But F1's always been a bit misogynistic. I think Danica Patrick explained it. I think Danica Patrick didn't care. Do you remember when Danica got on the Sky Sports F1 podcast and was asked the question, who's going to be the next woman? And Danica said, well, your question assumes that I care. Like, way to pull the leather up behind you, Danica Patrick. Like, do you know what I mean? Blessings. You assume that. You didn't need to be so slack in your answer, Danica. You could have just said a name. That's all that we were going for. Don't typecast me as I'm not. Like, what? Who's the next? What do you think there'll be a next woman in F1? And who? What's her name? Danica? Oh, don't even ask me that question, because your question presumes that I'm invested in a woman being F1, and I. Why? Well, I mean, that's very. She didn't need to ask. She didn't need to answer that question that way. Do you know what I mean? That put me off. I was never a big fan of Danica. That put me off for good. The women in F1 just hold the blowers up. But so go on then, Ricky. Go on. I think it's important. Okay, so Jamie Chadwick doesn't have. She's quick. I mean, she'll obliterate the rest of the women in W series. But Josh Revel made a brilliant video on this, whether Jamie Chadwick could do it. And when she's over a bit, I think she was in F3, F4, and she struggled massively. If you put Michelle Mouton or Sophie, Max's mom, or Leila Lombardi, and then we're talking, those are like serious women drivers. So I only give you those examples to say that of course it can happen, but you kind of need more coming through. Equality of outcomes or equality of opportunity even does not necessarily equal equality of outcomes. You guys have been legends. We'll touch base again. We will touch base. Liam, you're an absolute legend. Look at me. You can tell I'm riding third base as my enunciation has gone to pot. Sir Charles Edward Cheese, you're an absolute legend, so I'm grateful ad nauseum, ad infinitum. This stream is sponsored once again by Sir Charles Edward. You guys have been legends. Between now and next time, 10 a.m. tomorrow, 8 p.m. usual time, normal scheduling reviews. Resumes even. Poor enunciation yet again, Cameron. You guys have been legends. I appreciate each and every single one of you to the moon and back, and I make no apologies for labouring that point. Between now and next time, the prosecution rests. No further questions, Your Honour.